The shocking thing is humans all over the world, no matter where you are, what part of the world you are, we all have some beliefs that are stopping us from moving forward. We all have some sort of stories that we say to ourselves, saying, hey, I don't think I'm going to win this game because something happened to me in childhood. The dad, the mom, first of all, I want to make sure that you could hear me. Yes, you could hear me. Okay. The mom, the dad, the uncle, the abuse, the challenges, the childhood that we went through, it's all true. It is all true. You might have gone through a really challenging childhood, but I had clients who went through extremely challenging childhood, extremely challenging life, extremely challenging experiences, trauma, but still succeeded. Why? What is going on with us humans? What is our obsession with stories as a species, right? We love stories. We love drama. We love, oh my gosh, look at the hero's journey. The hero was struggling and then fighting and then was injured, and then the Troy, the saga of the hero. Like the hero is going through so many challenges, and then at the end, one day, just before he's about to die, he's free, he's happy. This is a conditioning of the mind, right? We want stories as a mind. We create stories in our head to make sense of the world. That's how our psychology understand what is happening in the world. We try to create metaphors in our mind, and these metaphors that we create in our mind, in our mind's eye, they decide where we go. So think about it this way. If you have a story of your dad doing something like, abusing, or your granddad, your cousin, your dad's friend doing something bad, and something happened, and then because of that, you say, you know what, I cannot succeed in my life anymore. It's hard, it's difficult, it's challenging, that if somebody had to go through that experience, but when they come to me, I tell them, guys, that is a curse story. This is a story that you are using. The truth, there is truth to it. I'm not underestimating what is happening to them, but this is a story that you are using to stop yourself from moving to the next level. This is a story that you are using against you. This is how we figure out a way to stay in darkness, in sadness, in depression, in loneliness, in agony, right? So we figure out a way. So we don't need to deal with our business. We don't need to grow our business. We don't need to grow in our career, because we are trapped by the story after all. We are trapped by the story. What do? I did my best, but those guys, they screwed me up. Those guys, they messed up. I came messed up. I came through this intergenerational curse. Let's get out of this, right? So this is a story of the humankind, right? We have been conditioned to fail. We are not programmed to fail. Our brain is highly capable of succeeding, but through our stories, the curse stories that we are conditioned to fail. So if you look at your life, like examine your life and see what are the stories that you're telling yourself. What are the stories that I'm sharing myself? For me, it was like I was born in India in an average family, and not a lot of education, didn't know how to speak English properly, not a bright student, and has an accent, especially when I'm starting to help people in the US. They're like, oh my gosh, I cannot succeed. And wherever I went, people said the same thing. Oh my gosh, you have an accent. It's so thick. It's horrible. I don't understand. We need to find you an accent coach from Hollywood. And then let me find somebody who would teach Hollywood actors to reduce your accent so that you could be understandable for Americans and Canadians. And then I'm from India, and people don't like people don't like non-Americans teaching them about business. The stories, right? And then they're like, I was earlier in my career, I was working, and I'm like, how could I teach somebody? How could I teach people? Because I'm this kid from a village. How could I teach people? This is the thing, right? Fundamentally, a curse story is a story that says, you are not enough. I am not enough. This is a fundamental human fear, right? As a species, we all think the Goliath and the David, right? You know the story in Old Testament about the Goliath and the David. The Goliath thinks that he is not good enough, and so is David. So both of them think that I'm not enough. This is a species that we are, right? We always think that, oh, I'm not enough. If I'm young, I think that I'm not old enough. If I'm old, I think that I'm not young enough. If I'm middle-aged, I think that I'm in a confused state, right? If I'm white, I think that I'm not black enough. I'm black, I think that I'm not white enough. So we figure out a way out of success through creating these curse stories. So we figure out a way to come up with something that we could use to not succeed in life. Why? Because our mind is messing with us. The conditioned mind is messing with us. So how do you change that? But before that, let me share with you one tool that you could use to help you figure this out. Is my book, which is 90 Days to Life. I'm putting the link here. My team would put the link here. Basically, it's a blessing story. This is a story of a woman who was going through a curse story in her life, and she figured out a way to create a blessing story in her life. It's an epic story that a lot of people all over the world loved, and a lot of people from 14 countries use these methodologies to grow their business, to move their life to the next level, to find more fulfillment and happiness in their life. So feel free to check it out if you're interested, if you're kind of a person who actually read book and stuff like that. Okay, so stories. So human deeper mind, the deeper subconscious mind, has this obsession with stories. Like if you look at your childhood, if I think about my own childhood, what I remember are the stories that my mom, my dad told me, or the stories that I heard other people say. So we have this deeper connection with stories, right? And because we have this deeper connection with stories, the stories that we have in our head decide the stories that we are going to have in the future. Again, because we have deeper connection with the stories in our head, the stories that we have about ourselves. Who am I? Right? I'm this weird kid from India who was not socially, didn't know how to mingle socially, didn't know how to talk to people, and he didn't know how to interact with people. Didn't know how to smile. That's my identity. That was my identity, right? And all of a sudden, I create the reality based on that story. So that is a story. And those stories can be two types. One type is curse stories, the stories that are pulling us backward, right? These are stories that are pulling us backward. And blessing stories, the stories that are pushing you forward, pulling you forward, pushing whatever forward, right? So when you look at your life right now, and when you look at your life right now, the stories that you have about yourself, like, are these stories inspiring or depressing? When you think about your life, are you thinking like, oh my gosh, 1985, 2003, look what happened to me. I did everything. I did everything that these people asked me to do. I did everything. I invested in thing. I put on 401k. If you're in the US, I invested in retirement. I did everything that people asked me to follow. I had houses. I had everything. I lost my money. Look at what happened to me, 2020. I did everything. But what happened? When the market crashed because of COVID, I lost everything. Look at my life. I did everything into my relationship. I invested all these things. I did everything that Everybody said, but look at me. Where am I? I invested everything. I went to gym. I ate the best food. I did this thing. Look at my life. Is that your story? Or I don't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. But I figured out what to do. But at the end, I figured out health. I figured out relationship. I figured out money. I figured out business. I figured out a way to grow business and become an entrepreneur. Right? So what is your story? Is this a story that is pulling you back, consistently running in your head? Or is it pushing forward? So look, self-examine for a second right now. I know you're in a hurry to go and check the post. If you're on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you're listening, you're curious to go check some post by somebody somewhere. But now take a moment to examine what are the stories that are running your life. Imagine you have an electric car and there is electricity that is running the car. Just like that, the car of your life is run by these stories. These stories that are pulling you back or pushing you forward. Makes sense? It's that powerful. And there are so many other things running. We need an engine and we need so many other things. But the bottom line is the stories are a significant part of our life because it creates an internal metaphor of what your life is going to be like. Right? So that's what we are talking about here. So if your stories, so identify one story that is limiting you. Like figure out a story. In my case, the story was, oh, I'm the Indian kid with an accent. And I'm like, screw it. I don't care. I don't care what people are going to think, and I don't care what. And like I started helping people more than a decade ago, and people thought I was crazy probably to do this, to helping businesses here in Silicon Valley, in US, in Canada, in UK, in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, India, so many other countries. It was outrageous at the time until it wasn't, because somebody had to believe. I thought I would start with me. So could you start believing in you when the whole world thinks that you're crazy? Right. So in my case, and then people are like, okay, I meet like Americans after Americans and Americans after Americans, consultants. I hire them and ask them, hey, what's going on? How could I build my brand? They're like, oh my gosh, I cannot hear you. And then I had this story in my mind that maybe because of my accent, because I was from India, nobody wants to study from me. And that's exactly what they said. And then I believed, it stopped my career from moving forward for half a decade because I believed what they said. But if you look at like CNBC or like CNN or like major news outlets all over the world, the experts, the people who know their stuff, nobody cares about their accent. The people like Gandhi or Jesus or Socrates, they never spoke English. They couldn't even understand. Probably if Jesus came back here, I don't know if you would be able to follow English. Okay, they all spoke different languages. So human soul does not have language. But I failed to recognize that because I had this story running in my head. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not enough. I'm not enough because of this. 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 So I figured out, probably you too figured out, a reason why you are not enough, so that you could validate yourself. Look at me, I'm failing anyway. Look at me, my life is like this anyway. Look at me, my relationship is like this anyway. Look at me, my business is not growing like this anyway. Why? Because I'm not enough. Here's a proof that I'm not enough. If that's your story, that's your life. That's the reality, guys. You want that to be, you want your story to be different? You want your story to be different? Change your story. Change your internal story. Change your internal dialogue about the story. Make sure that this story ends in happiness, in excitement. So look back into your story. And of course, I do like more advanced interventions in my accelerator events, where I teach business and accelerator event as well as Time to Profit, which is an online program that we do for entrepreneurs. And so either of these programs I teach, like go deep into how to convert a curse story into blessing stories. But I'll just give you a preview so that you could walk away with a specific step that you could take about this story. So look at this story and ask this question: what is not true about this story? Like, what is not true about this story? And question it, especially if that story is pulling you backward. Who else has done? So in my case, if I have an accent, all of a sudden I checked into history, and there is a guy called Nouriel Roubini. You could check him out. He's an economist from Iran. He's a professor at Stern School of Business in New York. And I cannot understand shit about what he's saying. I don't understand almost anything that he's saying. It's very difficult. I need to pay really close attention. But he's all over the place. Like 2008, he predicted the financial crisis, and everybody pays attention to him, right? In spite of the fact that more than half of the time, what he says is not happening. So what is a story? It's not the accent. It's not that. It's something else, right? So all of a sudden, I found holes in the story that was limiting me. So imagine there is a story that you are telling yourself that is stopping you from moving forward. Find holes, dig holes into those stories, and invalidate that story. All of a sudden, your mind is like, yeah, that is true. And in India, I was born in India. In India, there is a superstition. If there is a cat that crosses you, a black cat crosses you in the street, it's bad luck for you. And then I thought that when I came to the US, Americans would not have superstitions. Oh my gosh, Americans are not like that. They are like amazing people. They wouldn't have superstitions. And then I was walking below a ladder, and my handyman who was repairing my house or doing something, he said, oh my gosh, don't do that. That's bad luck. Don't walk under a ladder, right? So what does that mean? It means that we as a species, whether we are Americans or Canadians, hi James from Canada, write on Ruble Chandy your curse story into blessing story and be grateful what happened to you. Awesome. Thanks, buddy. I appreciate that. Awesome. Thanks for the comment. Okay, so no matter who you are, what country you live in, we all have our own package of stories that we believe in. So you poke holes in that stories and invalidate that story, question that story, and then intentionally come up with evidence, make up evidence to prove that you're going to win. Because after all, many of our curse stories don't have evidence anyway, and you still believe that. So you might as well believe in what is something that is going to help you as well. So create a blessing story, or convert a curse story into a blessing story, and create evidence, and create artificial evidence if you have to, and convince yourself this is the new reality. That's when your life story is going to change. And that's when you're going to move to the next level. So if you want to explore further, feel free to check out my book on Amazon. It's called 90 Days to Your Life. And I mean, I'm actually walking a person through moving from a curse story to a blessing story through the entire book, with so many techniques and so many things that I do through interventions. It's a simple, silly, hopefully funny story. So many people said it's funny. I had to work really hard to come up with like jokes for it. But the bottom line is, that's 90 Days Life. This is my book. So it was an international bestseller in 2019. And go ahead and check that out. If you want to learn more, you could visit my website, rublechandy.com. And if you're not part of MBA, or if you're not part of our Facebook group, Business Accelerators, feel free to join that. And if you have any questions, put that in the chat. Put that in the comment below the video. My team will send it to me. I'll be happy to answer that for you. All right. So change your curse stories into blessing stories. No matter where you are in life, even if you feel like there's no way to move forward, and if you feel like your story has ended, it hasn't ended until you believe the story has ended. So if you feel like your story has ended, say that there is still story left until you win to the next level. Okay, so that's my hope for you. Use this tool to grow your business to the next level, because once you believe in yourself, in spite of everybody else's opinions, then you become the unicorn. You become the unique person who's going to take your business to the next level. All right, good luck. Talk to you soon.